Welcome, everyone, to episode 386 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pentalaresco. I write stuff in Podcast 2. This week's story time is Cloud Diver, Chapter 4, Part 4, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thoroughly enjoying this story. I thought this was going to be the conclusion this week, but it looks like we're going to have one more part next week. I slowed this down kind of on purpose, just because I've actually just been enjoying just the readings from some of my guests, whether they've been Susie Vidori, whether they've been this week's guest, Cassandra Arnold, who kills it with her spiel, which I think is amazing. Cassandra's an amazing human being, and the interview this week we do for the podcast is absolutely incredible, and I'm thrilled she came on board to actually read for this podcast, so I'm really appreciative that she showed up. Couple things that I wanted to get to before we get to that, and that is I was doing a YouTube show this week. I ended up having the opportunity to be a game show host for the first time ever. Susie Vidori was launching her book Wall of Wishes, and it was phenomenal. I actually was really happy to be a part of that. She wanted to do something a little different, and so we did something a little different. I invited the audience to come and participate in a quiz show, and we did. We have a winner, Nathan Ray. Congratulations, buddy. You won. And you guys can watch the episode on YouTube right now on my channel, Joshua Pentalaresco. So make sure, if you do, click on the subscribe button. Subscribers are awesome. And it won't be my last YouTube show. My next one is July 16th. Thursday night, I'm doing a little tea party to launch Atlas Zero. So I'm hoping by the time this is all said and done, by the time this airs, you'll have an order link. But anyway, ain't that cool? But let's get to my first reading, shall we? Johnny finally had his moment with Lisa, so now we get to find out what everything's all about from here on in. So, without further ado, let's continue with the Cloud Diver, shall we?
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
The Cloud Diver, Level 1-4, Chapter 4, Feed, Void Life, _truths, at The Truth Is Out There, unverified account. Sadly, most people are meat sacks or plebeians that do not understand how the world works. The strong devour the weak. All we have is each other. Hashtag nihilist thought of day. I felt better leaving the room. Great weights had been lifted off my chest. My mind was still confused. Answers were murky and unclear at the moment, but for now, I only worried about what was in front of me. I hit the elevator button and decided to check into the lobby. No doubt Gunblade and Atlas were wondering if I was still alive. Checking in seemed like a good place to start. Scott was waiting for me at the bottom. "She doing okay?" he asked. "Yeah?" I noticed two orderlies stepped to the side of me, each one of them cutting off escape. The elevator door closed with a loud thunk behind me. Felt a little crowded around me. "What's going on, buddy?" I was impressed with my calm in the situation. I only felt a mild flutter in the heart with this unexpected development. "Well, I have good news and I have bad news. Which do you want to hear?" I did not like the sound of this. The good news? Due to the inoculations and treatments Void Life gives their employees, there is a very good chance you are not infected. The idea of being infected from being in contact with Lisa had never occurred to me. It made sense in hindsight, but my well-being hadn't been the top priority at that moment. Now that I've had my moment, the more logical part of my being was busy kicking me in the head with this obvious fact. So obvious that I intuited the bad news. But there's still a chance I'm infected? You always were a smart one. The two orderlies wrestled me to the ground. I have to admit that I was impressed. They were actually smaller than I was, more orangutan than man in their flexibility. I felt myself coil and constricted like a shish kebab on a plate. Scott, for his part, observed this process like the detached professional he was. Deliberate and emotionless until the job was done, he finally gave the nod of approval once I was taken care of. "I'm sorry about this," he said to me, holding a syringe with some very neon blue liquid in his hand. "We have to be sure you leave no trace. This will be painless, mostly." Mostly? That never sounds good with the promise of painlessness. My old friend was lying to me. Before I could protest, I felt a prick from the syringe and wince. It didn't just hurt, it stung worse than a bee sting, and I swore. And I didn't worry about it so much. Sure, they would load me onto a gurney, and yes, there weren't the great gentlest while doing so. But it was cool, man. For some strange reason, I was fun with everything. Nothing fazed me. Gonna play count to 5, the building could explode, or I could just face Chester again. I'd be cool. It occurred to me as they put me inside a box that perhaps the drug I was injecting with had something to do with my zen-like state. But I just didn't care. I relaxed and enjoyed the show. Sometime during the process, I fell asleep. I dreamed of Stevie Rai running from the Promethean giant. Somewhere along the way, Stevie Rai transformed into me, and behind me was a crazy zombie Borg and a crazy wizard driving an ice cream truck. I woke with a scream. You got some lungs on you, don't you? Atlas was sitting beside my hospital bed, reading a used paper from the year 2026. The headline on the front said, Cowboys win bowl. Men dressed like savage gladiators and wearing metal helmets with a star insignia were wearing what appears to be men with different colored uniforms on the cover. He looked up as he heard me move from my slumber, and he folded the paper, which had still somehow seemed able to stay together all this time. The care of how he folded it surprised me. Why do I read that? I said with real interest. It's a collector's item, I know, Atlas said with a smile. It's just such a fascinating thing. Once upon a time, people got their news through pamphlets like this. I watched him read that major spelling pamphlet with morbid curiosity and a little discomfort. How could he do that? As if sensing my feelings, I was sobbing. Want to try it? I freaked out. The idea of actually touching something like that almost repelled me at first. Everything was feeds and virtual. Visceral seemed like the very foreign idea. Yet, Atlas did it with no issues. Why couldn't I? I grabbed the paper and turned it to a random selection. Sections highlighted themselves in bold black letters. I found the headline entitled Books and looked at some of the headlines. I found an article and grabbed my attention and read, Howerton becomes first UN bestseller with Book 5 of the Wolf and Devil series, and actually read a review of the book in question. The first thing I noticed holding it was the feel of the paper. The pages were smudged, and only I swore I could feel the inks on the page stain my fingers. There was a part of me that felt repulsion at the thought of touching it. That discomfort faded, though, as I engaged myself with the article in question. Parts of my brain tingled in a way I never experienced reading on a screen or even interacting in the tower. My eyes moved with the page, going downward along the black and white canvas. It felt completely natural for me to do so. After hearing rave reviews about the book, I had the desire to read it, which is what the article was trying to accomplish. What do you think? Atlas asked. Different, I admit, with a touch of hesitation. I never experienced anything quite like that. Yet I realized I enjoyed the tactile sensation. It was a muscle I hadn't realized I had, and there was sadness at the thought of trying to find something like this again. You enjoyed it. Atlas echoed my thoughts with a smile. I looked at him a little bit and I saw him grin. I didn't quite see him as the gruff and tough back, but man with appreciation for relics from the past and a depth I hadn't recognized when we were dodging beings that disintegrated in the fire. I did, I admitted. There's hope for you yet, he said, folding the paper back to his pocket. You're not what I expected, I admitted that moment passed. Surprise, kid? You seemed uncomplicated. That's how I'd like people to see me, Atlas answered. Life tends to be anything but uncomplicated. Nothing is ever what it seems. You want to know what my job was before all this? Sure. A million jobs can be concerned with the most unlikely. Many cool and strange and wonderful jobs as a soldier, a race car driver, helping the head. I was an English teacher. Okay, it wasn't a cool job. It did make me think how an English teacher became the man who reads to people and speaks so gravelly to me. I love stories. Milton, Vonnegut, Shakespeare, Van Diepen, Bradbury. I had dreams when I was young. There was a boyish grin on his face as I watched life replay in his eyes. What do you dream of? Honestly? Nothing, I said with shame. Until now, I was happy with what I had. You wouldn't have followed her if you were. You could have called your authorities when you stumbled onto her. Why didn't you? Why didn't I? Looking back, I'd broken all protocol once I saw the 13th floor. I should have known the honor you reported to those who were paid to worry about such things. I didn't. I see you're interviewing. Her voice was quiet and velvety as she approached us. She seemed more somber and guarded than before. Did she know someone here as well? Everything all right? Atlas asked. The usual, she answered. Later. What do you think? He's newborn. Atlas chuckled, and as clueless as I was when I was his age. I suggest whatever you decide, go slowly. His old life is all gone now. For just a second, I saw her eyes drop down and look away from me. But whatever is conveyed in that expression advanced so fast I may have imagined it. Resolved while I made all traces of regret on her voice. Can't coddle him too much, she stated. They're already after the Damon, and we don't have a lot of time. No, we don't, Alice conceded. The doctor will need that virus soon. Doctor? bio. I knew there was more going on than they were telling me. The sickness, at least the biological part of it, Gumblight's head spreading arms toward the coffin invasion around us. We think we found the cure, and it's inside your daemon. And that was part 4, ladies and gentlemen. Part 5. The conclusion to chapter 4 is next week. And then after that, we're going to take a week off. The story time for Marcio Cantalino. He is a voice actor. But we had an incredible conversation. So incredible that it's going to take my story time slot the following week. It's actually really cool that I had the opportunity to read someone like this. We got like an incredible lineup for the next 6 episodes. So we got Cassandra Arnold, Tuesday. Joe Compton, Thursday. Storytime, Saturday. Marcio, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. It's going to be a cool little next couple weeks for sure. I had an incredible month. Dave Butler, Morgan Chammy, Christina Z. Those are awesome conversations. I'm really glad I had. Brian Tan is by far my most popular one this month. So Brian, you rock. Thanks, man, for coming on. And I may even do the Susie Reed at some point as a maybe episode 399. That's kind of like a little fun one or maybe 401. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Episode 400 though is going to be at the Alistero tea party. That's right. I'm doing a tea party, and it's going to be a blast. And it's going to be a lot of fun to do and be a part of. There's a lot more to it, but that's what I'm going to say for now. But enough about me for the moment. So Cassandra here is going to be reading from several books at once. It was really cool that she decided to do this. So without further ado, here's Cassandra.
Something wicked this way comes. Prairie Gothic is a new collection of psychological horror stories set on the vast Canadian prairies by up-and-coming talents. And we need your help. By contributing to Prairie Gothic through Kickstarter, you can unlock special swag, exclusive contributor-only events, and even have a song written about you. Visit kickstarter.com/profile/prairie soul to find out more and see what's waiting for you in the wide open spaces.
Hi, Cassandra Arnold here. I just want to say fantastic thank you to Josh for asking me to read to you after he interviewed me for the podcast. What a fantastic opportunity. I'm really excited. I actually have 4 books currently out, so I'm going to read you a little snippet from each one. So the first one I'm going to read from is a non-fiction book about my work in Africa with Doctors Without Borders. I was a physician with them for over 5 years. I'd go for a couple of months, come home for a couple of months. So this is actually the story of my first mission when I went to Niger, which is a country in the Sahel, and it was for a meningitis epidemic. So this is one section from the story of what it was like to be going around searching for cases of meningitis while the rest of the team organized a mass vaccination campaign. Some days, I feel like I'm being sent on one wild goose chase after another. Yes, there is a case of meningitis in the next village. We find a machete-wielding young man who'd had a mild headache the day before. There's definitely one in the next place, just past those trees over there. We find an old woman curled in the shadows of her mud brick hut. She is dying, but determined not to leave her family. I leave what I have to make her comfortable and silently commend her wisdom. But there really is one, a sick girl in the nomad camp up over the hill. It's getting late. We have a nighttime curfew. The driver says we just have time to go and check the story out. We set off fast, jolting across the sand. When we finally find the huts, the family drags out the most dehydrated being I have ever seen. She looks about 6. She's deeply unconscious. Her mouth gapes open and flies crawl in and out. Her dull eyes are sunk so far back into her head that they lie in shadowed pits crusted with sand. I can't imagine how that child is still alive. This is really meningitis. My hands are shaking as I give her the ceftriaxone injection and the slow intravenous drip that I hope will save her life. I ask about other cases. They bring out an older sister, maybe 9 or 10, walking with her neck held stiff and a grimace of pain. also meningitis. By some error or not of the imam who names the children, they are both called Mariama. We drive carefully back with them, bouncing along the rutted track toward the fast-setting sun. So then I have to say, if you want to know the outcome for the two Mariamas, you'll have to read the rest of the book. So then I'm going to read you another poem. I have a very small book of poetry that I wrote while I worked in the emergency department in Australia. So I wrote a poem in the evenings mostly to help me decompress from the day. This one is called Holy Circumcision. It doesn't look like a very good job. The boy sits on a towel soaked in blood, his dark eyes wary. This time he is ready to run. The bandage stuck, and like any 5-year-old, he wouldn't get in the shower as instructed to wash it off. The parents pulled instead, and the dressing dislodged the clot. I wash off the caked gore and check that the bleeding has stopped. From his screams you'd think we were cutting again. At least he's a boy, and the parents brought him in. What about the girls who never make it this far? I guess it's not news to most of you listening that there's a lot of inequality in access to healthcare for girls and boys around the globe, particularly in developing countries. So the next book I'm going to read from is my most recent one, Explode, Poetry for Activists. And this is more cheerful. After those two, you probably need something to make you smile, I think. So this is called All I Need to Be. Today I eat beautiful food, dusky mushrooms the colour of earth, tomatoes red as Mars or velvet or blood, and brown-shelled, gold-yolked eggs. I drink bitter dandelion, made easy by the touch of honey and joyful by the touch of love. I walk in my garden, pile weeds onto the compost pile, scratch back the grass that is colonising the concrete slab I chose for the poultry shed. Watch my blood run as I am scratched in turn. Let the sun kiss my soil-stained hands. I arch an aching back, gaze up at twig and leaf against a sky blown clear of cotton cloud. My hair lifts in the breeze, and I laugh. I am alive. That is all I need to be. So that book is designed to help us deal with climate change. So it has some poems that are about the grief of what's happening and some poems that are about the wonder of just being alive on the earth. So now to finish, I'm going to read you from my romance novel, which is sustainability themed, surprise, surprise, and is a wonderful read. Very romantic, happy ending. Highly recommend it if you want something to cheer you up in these days of COVID and isolation. So I'll just read a page or two from the beginning, I think. It's written in alternate first-person points of view. So this is the female heroine, Bridget. My son sat with his head bent toward the screen, his fingers tapping fast on the keyboard. At 16, he cared about only 2 things, his friends and computers. I watched him surreptitiously for a long moment. It had been years since he'd asked if he looked like his father. My gut twisted every time I thought of it, but more and more he did, with his slender build and dark eyes. Was that why I'd begun dreaming B-grade movies, men with guns cutting swathes of destruction and helping themselves to the spoils? I shook my head to clear the images and carried the dinner plates into the kitchen. Ben? I raised my voice to cut through the cocoon of his headphones. Don't forget it's your turn to do the dishes. Yeah, Mum. He didn't look around. In a sec. I've just got to finish. Whoa, look at this. What? I walked over, the cloth I was about to wipe the table with damp in my hand. Sliding down next to him on the used piano stool, I leant forward without thinking to wipe the wonky clay cat that guarded the desk. We'd both been so proud of it when he brought it home from kindergarten, and I still was. Look, he jabbed his finger at the screen. Oh, I forgot to say this is set in Australia in 1997. Look, he jabbed a finger at the screen. In front of me was the loveliest web page Netscape Navigator had ever shown me. In the centre was the earth, blue and white, green and brown, the continents, mountains and oceans depicted in loving detail. Around it was a kaleidoscope of blues, shot through with silver sparks that glittered like stars, was mesmerising. Does it go anywhere? Ben scrolled around rapidly, shaking his head. I can't find a link. Weird. What the? He blurted. That wasn't there a minute ago. Beneath the planet hovered a small red arrow. Go on, click. The eagerness in my voice startled me. Was I so hungry for something new, exotic? Or was it sharing it with Ben that meant so much? As he grew older, our times together shrank away, and I shamefully missed his small child need of me. The empty nest hovered over my life like doom. The next screen was a stark contrast. Above a golden seed, green letters spelled out, The Greenleaf Project. Below, in simple black script, were the words, More Tomorrow. Bookmark it, I said, intrigued. Let's check it out then. Ben rose and stretched, his long limbs casting dark shadows in the lamplight. Okay if I go round to Steve's? I tilted my head in a mock frown. Homework? We're doing it together. He got good grades, so I guess they did. Sure, never mind the dishes then, they won't take me long. Don't be late, there's school tomorrow. I ambled back to the kitchen as he left, the image of the miniature Earth still glowing in my mind. It had been so bright, I felt I could have reached out and touched it. Who'd created the mysterious sight? And what would tomorrow bring? Well, that's probably a good place to leave that. So I hope you enjoyed those readings. If you want to find any of my books, you can just go to CassandraArnold.com. And there you'll find links to everything, links to my amazing social media on Instagram. You can sign up for my brilliant monthly newsletter full of resources to help you live a sustainable life and inspired reading. Just kidding, really. But anyway, you can go to my website, CassandraArnold.com, and there is indeed a newsletter and social links and links to all my books, which are available on Amazon and Kindle. So enjoy the rest of your day.
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Wall of Wishes. That's right, Susie Vidori is launching the final book of her Aurora-nominated trilogy 3 months early. Wall of Wishes is now out June 30th, and pre-orders for Owl's Nest books start June 21st. Starting June 21st, we will celebrate this launch with our events, contests, and more throughout the web. Check out Owl's Nest Books for more details, and check out Susie Vidori to find out just what's coming up. Cassandra Arnold is just amazing, isn't she? It was really cool to get this opportunity to listen to her and get the chance to hear some very amazing stories. Cassandra's my guest on Tuesday, and I promise you guys more amazing stories are there. Very cool, one-of-a-kind human being, and I'm happy that she came on and did a reading here. So Cassandra, thank you very, very much for doing that. And for everyone else, I hope you guys enjoyed the readings. Cassandra's awesome. And one more reading next week, and then we go into a bit of a fun, very chat-heavy month of July. Like I said, this week, Cassandra Arnold, Joe Compton, my last story time for Chapter 4. And then after that, Marcio Catalano is a big time 3-part episode, and then some really other cool conversations with some really cool personalities and different things about the writing community. It's definitely, July is going to be a really cool month. Not to mention, well, I didn't quite get to it tonight, unfortunately, so hopefully I'll do this tomorrow. I'm just finishing the cover to Alice there. I'm just basically putting the fonts down, just different fonts, trying some different things out, putting some shading to it, and I'm going to have some friends look at it tomorrow. Like I said, just one of those really cool things. The newsletter is going to be late as well, but all in all, it's been a cool time. It's been a fun time, and I thank you guys for showing up for story time. And that'll do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so in a number of different ways. You can subscribe to the podcast. I'm on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, as well as every other kind of platform you want. Stitcher, you name it, I'm there. Just click on it, subscribe, tell people I'm awesome. If you hate the podcast, that's cool too. All in all, it was a blast. It really, really was a blast to do this, and I appreciate everybody being here. Number one. Number two, buy my book, The Cloud Diver. Buy Cassandra's books on her website, CassandraArnold.com. Links are going to be provided in the episode descriptions. My YouTube channel is Joshua Pintellaresco. I have just uploaded now 314 episodes of the podcast can be listened there. plus some cool videos, including the one I did with Susie this week, which was a ton of fun to do. Beyond that, my Twitter and Instagrams at jpenteloresco. Check out my new webpage, jpenteloresco.wordpress.com. There's definitely links on what I offer in services as a freelancer in terms of writing, editing, podcasting, hosting, and other problems I solve as well, including advertising. So, beyond all that, guys, stay inspired, keep doing your thing, and I'll see you next week on Storytime when I conclude the Cloud Diver Part 4.
Josh.